And now, live from the 2015 Vancouver International Wine Festival, Anthony Gismondi and Casey Wilson. This is Tony and Casey's Best of Food and Wine on CIL 650.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Best of Food and Wine live from the floor of the Vancouver International Wine Festival. It's day 3. We're still alive. Kind of,
Barely.
sort of, barely. I'm with Casey Wilson, of course, and, well, we've got a great show planned this afternoon, and, of course, tonight we'll be back live at 7 o'clock. But joining us now is MattFowles from FowlesWine. Matt is one of the most interesting guys in the room. Very smart marketer with great wines. It's a fantastic combination. The ladies who shoot their lunch are eating up the show. How are you doing?
Really well, thanks, guys. Yeah, having fun.
Yeah. Great wine. I don't know. What, you sit around and dream that up?
We did, actually. It took a couple of bottles of wine to come up with a name, but actually it's funny that people think we're great marketers, but this was one that the marketers told us not to release, so they thought it'd be hands up in the air and people deserting the winery, but actually...
What the hell did they know anyways?
Well, as it transpires, they don't know a thing, so there you go.
It's great. We're going to talk a bit more about that. I know you're a very interesting guy, very ethical guy. You have all this background that drives you at the company. But tell us a little bit about where you are and maybe a quick history of the Fowles Wine Company.
Yeah, so we're located in the Strathbogie Ranges in northeast Victoria. Mm-hmm. And I think when people think of Australia, they think...
Closest big city is?
Melbourne.
There you go. Okay.
Down in the southeast of the Australian mainland. And I think when people think of Australia, they think of beaches and deserts, but actually we're up near our snowfield, so we're right up high on a mountaintop. Yep. And actually we get -6 in winter and flurries of snow, so it's
great.
Yeah, cool part of the world.
Well, let's talk about, I like to get the wines going because sometimes we run out of time. The first wine you brought along was a Wild Ferment Shiraz.
Wild Ferment Chardonnay.
Yep. Pardon me, Shiraz.
No, that's right. Yeah. Ladies who shoot their lunch Chardonnay. So this is a really interesting and fun wine to make. We have about 80 ferments, so it's fermented, 100% fermented in barrel. We use mostly older oak, small or larger format oak, so 500-litre puncheons, and then also a couple of big 5,400-litre oak casks. And so lots of different options when we come round to the bench. So there's some wild ferment, there's a bunch of 4 different other yeasts we use as well. And with these wines, we're blending them for wild game, which is an interesting idea. And we're looking for aromatic intensity and then quite a fine structure.
So when you talk about these wild ferments, what does that bring to the wine? Is it a more natural way of making wine?
It is a more natural way of making wine. So we let the wine do its own thing, if you like. We don't inoculate the ferment with commercial yeast as is most commonly done. So we just let the ambient yeast around the winery populate the ferment. And it's a very difficult quality to describe, wild ferment, but I best describe it as just a layer of funk. It does change the texture. Yeah. It adds just this layer of complexity, which is absolutely delightful.
Yeah. Well, I always describe it as a bit of a head turner. Like people taste it and then they go, what is that? Like, because they're so used to a different flavor in Chardonnay. Who does shoot their lunch in Victoria?
Well, my wife does, for one, which is why I'm so well behaved. But actually, of course, I also do, and it's a funny topic. You know, sometimes I get raised eyebrows with the hunting issue, but for us, it's about understanding where our food and wine comes from, going back to the source, and we're very careful about doing it in an ethical way.
And what do you shoot?
Well, in Australia, we have a lot of animals that are introduced, and we have such a delicate ecosystem there that we have to, by law, control those populations. So the obvious one would be rabbits and hares, and I think you call them jackrabbits here.
Yes.
And so, you know, we are compelled as farmers to poison them and manage the populations. But for me, I'd rather ethically shoot them, and then feed them to my family. Yeah. And the thing about wild meat, when you're tasting it, it has a different texture and intensity. And so then, if you believe wild meat is a different class of meat, as I do, then there's actually things you can do in the winemaking to make the wine better suited to game, and that's about aromatic intensity and then particular structure of the wine.
So it allows you to up the flavor of the wine a bit to match the flavor of what you're eating.
Yeah, well, that's right. And particularly in the aromatics, that's what we're looking for. But I think if you have too big a texture in the wine, that if you have too much oak-derived tannin or fruit-derived tannin,
right.
It can overwhelm the palate, because game sort of makes your palate work hard anyway.
Well, it's a terrific wine to start with. I wish we had some game to have with it.
So you would have this with rabbit?
Yeah, I think rabbit. You could also have quail, pheasant. Those sort of white-grey meats are the way to go for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Have you ever marinated rabbit in your Shiraz?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great way to have rabbit. People here are a little anxious about eating rabbit.
I think you keep them as pets here, don't you?
Yes.
It's a very different culture in Australia.
Exactly.
Yeah. Pets or bothersome pets, I guess, is the way we would look at them. Our guest is Matt Fowles. He's the proprietor of FowlesWine. Matt, you're in the Yarra. The Yarra's images, I don't know, it's always had a great image maybe in Australia, but worldwide, Barassa's been leading the charge for Australia. What is it like to really get the Yarra on the map now around the world?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're actually just north of the Yarra in the Strathbogie Ranges, but absolutely the same part of the world, except we're on the hills above the valley. And look, it's to be honest, it's challenging to spread the message of region, but when we do have these conversations with people, they embrace it. So it's a lot of fun too.
Well, we've seen this week because, of course, the sort of regions and sub-regions of Australia have been the theme of the wine festival, and there's a lot of interest in where these wines come from. I think it's so natural. Canadians are very concerned now about what they eat and where it comes from, and I think it's a natural thing to ask where the wine comes from.
Well, that's right, and it's so common for people to understand region, say with French wines, it's commonplace, but with Australia we've got to build that layer of knowledge in, and again, when people hear the stories about these places, they absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But just the way the festival's set up, it's very instructive.
Yeah, I think
wonderful to go to a region.
Yeah, and we've been involved in these seminars over the week, and just getting the feedback from people and realising there are all these layers to Australian wine, which is driven by region for the most part, and they're really embracing it.
So speaking of layers, here's your big chance. A lot of people have heard a lot about Barossa Shiraz here and Coonawarra Shiraz, so now you've brought a Shiraz to us. It's a completely different animal.
It is a different animal.
Or a different wild animal.
That's right. It is a different animal. It's a feature of region, but also this wine is about a sense of style.
Like, how much pepper did you put in the tank when you made this wine?
Well, we wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But there is that huge pepper spice. So, and that's a gift from Mother Nature. You know, that's just the way the
means cool to me right away.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly.
And what's your favorite match with this food match?
Well, my favourite meat of all time is hare, and again, I think you call it jackrabbit. It's this dark red meat. People think it's like rabbit, but it's actually very different. Dark red meat, and it has this quality that's all its own. It's just delicious. And my all-time favourite match is ladies who shoot their lunch Shiraz with hare.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay, I'm not going to let you off the hook, so let's talk a bit about the style. Barossa, richer, sort of fatter. This has got, obviously, it's got a lot of cool notes on the nose. Where would you put it in the spectrum of Shiraz across sort of Australia?
Yeah, we're definitely at the opposite end than Barossa.
Yeah.
Barossa make beautiful, rich, dense Shiraz, but we make the delicate, restrained version, and personally, I find that a better fit with food, and again, we're seeking that style.
It's not Coonawarra though, and it's not Western Australia. It's very distinctively, I guess Strathbogie. I guess
it is. That's right, and we're very proud of that, and it's and it is part of the the thing we're doing here is showing people the different regions.
Yeah, Matt, have you had a good time in Vancouver?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
love
I know
coming here.
You've been here before, but it's a fun city to come to.
Oh, it's awesome.
Are we catching up to the rest of the world in our appreciation of wine, or?
Do it's interesting? I would say the Canadian consumers are right up there. The education here seems to be very strong. In other parts of the world, it's sort of I don't know if it's rote learnt or more conversational.
Yeah.
But here you actually very good information in the liquor stores and so on. So I actually think you guys are further down the track than most.
Yeah.
For
Great.
Sure.
Hey, can we come and visit you? Is that something consumers can do and get up? I mean, I know they go to Barossa and they go to, Coonawarra. Can they go to Strathbogie and do the same thing?
Absolutely, but the only condition is you need to come out with me hunting.
Yeah.
How about that?
Hunting.
Good. I would love
like
to do that. I've gone duck hunting.
Oh, how did you enjoy
We
it?
had duck hunters in our family in, the early 1900s. I loved it. All the men-only sports are great. You guys,
Well, we're shaking it up. All the girls get involved for sure.
Yeah.
That would be kind of
good.
fun to shoot your lunch.
It
Let's do
would.
it.
Maybe. Not easy to do.
No,
Matt, thanks so much.
that's a pleasure.
Great to catch up with you, and thanks for the 2 wines. Of course, the wines now are available in British Columbia, which is a nice thing.
They certainly are.
Yeah, so do you know the price on...
Yeah, the ladies who shoot their lunch is $39.99.
Okay.
And we also have another range called Are You Game?
Yeah.
And that's $23.99.
Perfect. So we can look for those in both private wine stores, and I know one of the ladies who shoots her lunch is in government stores now.
Yeah, I believe so. The Lady Shiraz.
Yeah, everywhere. Thanks so much.
That's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Our
Cheers.
guest has been Matt Fowles. He owns the joint at FowlesWine in the Strathbogie ranges. People are really coming to like the differences in Australian wine. It's been a great discovery this week.
I agree, Tony. I agree.
Poor Casey, she's struggling with a cold. Listen, we'll take a quick break. We'll come right back. You're listening to the Best of Food and Wine. We're on CIL 650.
There's lots more still ahead. Live from the 2015 Vancouver International Wine Festival, this is Tony and Casey's Best of Food and Wine on CIL 650.